Hello everybody, it's Duck07 and this is another Melira Zoo Scam video. Very fun deck to play. I've been getting very good results with it, and the problem I had mostly with this deck was getting flooded too often, uh, partially because we are playing 3 Ren and 6, and of course when you play Ren and 6 from the start you have access to many lands, but even if in the lands in the games without run and 6, and I was just deck doesn't have much card selection except for territorial cavu, which can loot away the lands, and sometimes you just start a game, keep 4 lands, three spells, one of them can be like run and 6, and you end up drawing into 2 3 more lands, and it just kind of was very easy to get flooded. So I decided to use the Fable of the Mirror Breaker to resolve my flood, and also if, because of the good interaction Fable has with obviously elementals, 8 elementals in our deck, we can scam them early, but in the late game we can also copy them with a Fable. Fable becomes a large threat in this deck, and opponent just needs to kill it. And we are playing 3 Meliras and Safi, 2 Safis Eric's daughters, so it's not that easy to kill a flipped Fable, and definitely people are going to have problems in the late game just getting rid of the Fable, and when Fable gets online, copying the Solitudes and Fury, it's game over in the most in most matchups that go long. Okay, so uh, everything else is basically the same. We talked about a lot in the Zoo community about cutting the sounds from this list, and kind of also felt that I'm missing another very good threat in this deck, and the Scion was always so good at just lowering opponents' life total down to 0. It is a great help also enabling trample, first strike to territorial cavu, first strike to general, and so on. A lot of these very helpful abilities, but I find Fable to be better here because it's another monocolored spell, and we don't want to play too much of those, and we are already borderline having a very large number of those, and so I was struggling with fitting in more monocolored spells because we really want this general to be optimized in this deck. But Fable also helps us a bit to get rid of the monocolored spell in our hand or lands, and to find those Bloodbraided Elves, Shardless Agent, Vrens, Melira, Scows we want. So it's a monocolored spell, but help us through card selection. So in that manner, it's not unexciting as Scion can be sometimes when the 4 damage just doesn't matter much in the air, and you're trying to stabilize, and that's it. So I think Fable performed better for me, and by thinking about possible gameplays, play patterns. I just felt like Fable was a lot more dangerous for my opponents, and they feared very much of Fable flipping, resolving, then copying the elementals would mean game over in most cases. So I played 2 Lightning Helixes in my first list in the video I made a week ago, and while Helix is a fine option, it's a good card for this deck. It has synergy with General Ferrus. It's good against Burn. Or obviously, Burn is a hard matchup for this deck, so it helps there definitely. And I was able to win some games against Burn because of the Helix. But Fable was just overall much more exciting for this deck. Another very good, very strong mid-range card that extends this game plane this deck has, and give it another very hard to deal with threat. that can easily end the game, same as the unanswered General Ferris Recruit. So they have similar effect. Really needs to be removed from the battlefield as soon as possible. If they are not, they will take over the game. And I was looking for a way to play both of them, and Helix was good, but underperformed in the last two leagues I played with the deck, and I decided to really kind of directly lost two, three matches because of the Helix and cascading into Helix, which was kind of needed anything but Helix, and I got to Helix unfortunately, which was which directly caused game loss in a lot of situations, and it was just not sustaining our mid-range value plan, and decided to get rid of it, and I needed one more slot. So I removed one Boseiju from the main to the sideboard, and I feel like it was a decent option. Obviously, one Boseiju main can be good in a specific meta or even two in the main, but in the open meta it kind of wasn't relevant enough. I needed another Fable, so I really wanted that over that, and I was perfectly happy with the number of scammers we play. Two Southeast 3 Melira feels perfect. Seven of the Cascaders also feel perfect. Definitely want four General Ferris. General Ferris is better in this deck than in any other I played him in before. Territorial Cow are great. Also, we need General because it really helps with the pitch plan for Solitudes and Fury. And we have a great number of white and red spells in deck. It's kind of pretty perfect. Uh, all uh, all spells in the deck except for Shardless can be pitched to our elementals, and spread is pretty good. I'm very happy with it. So that's it. Some changes to the sideboard. I added two Vindicates in. Two Vindicates because I had some problems. I was paired a lot against Tron, and I really wanted a solution, a card more to be good against Tron because it is kind of tricky matchup for this version of Zoo. For the regular Zoo, Tron is very easy matchup. A few stubborn denials and Leyland bindings together with the fast lock from Nakatal Ragavan just wins the game very quickly. But this is a bit slower version, mid-range, no burn spells to top deck and finish the game after initial damage, so we got to play some Tron Hate. I already have Boseiju, obviously, but it could be maybe just 3 Boseiju, but I think Vindicate performed really well there, helped me win some matches against Tron, but it's also a very versatile card that can be good in in other matchups too, like when you're playing against the four color Omnat, you basically don't have any card on your sideboard that is good against them, except for maybe Boseiju if they play the Leyland Binding version. But Vindicate is a card that can be boarded in that matchup. It deals with all problems we have with their deck. It deals with the fairy. It can kill their land, which can be a pretty good play if they don't have Ren and are kind of struggling with lands. It can kill, of course, Ren itself or Omnat, any other permanent. Elesh, of course. I struggled with Elesh against those lists, so because we don't have a solution for it, it's not that. I was able to win some games just by creating a lot of these General Ferris tokens and winning the game with the tokens and a lot of damage. But it can be tricky if they're on the play and you just don't have solution for it in your entire deck. It's pretty nice to have two Vindicates. So that was the reason. Mainly Elesh, Norn being popular in four color Omnat, and struggling with the Tron decks, I decided to include two Vindicates. I think these cards can be Orvars in a different metagame to help deal with creativity, because creativity is also a tricky matchup, but we kind of don't have don't have spots to play everything, but I would definitely prioritize Orvar because creativity is a lot more common matchup than those two. But of course, you will have to adjust your sideboard according to expected matchups. Yeah, so maybe if you don't expect any combo decks, you can take meddling mages out too. And if you don't need help there, also maybe don't play Leyline of the Voids. If no scam, maybe just play uh, two unlicensed cursed or something like that to gain one extra slot. These are the options, and Orvars would be very welcome in this sideboard, but just I decided to not play it in this league, but it's a really really good possibility. Okay, so I think there is still some dilemmas over a few spots. Like I would really like to have that one Boseiju in the main, but really like the numbers of all the cards currently in the main. I really like three Fables, really like three Bloodbraid Elves, like five Meliras, three Vrents. This all has felt very perfect, and don't want to touch this. And this just list looks very smooth and clean as I like it, and the numbers feel just perfect to me. And really, I don't want to mess it up with. I don't want to cut third elf, third fable, second Safi. These all cards are very good, performed, overperformed, and um, just have been constantly very good. I think the power level of the deck has very large potential against a lot of the meta. Is still not great against decks that traditional cascade decks were weak to, so combo game one against um, creativity, amulet, titan, stuff like that. But we have a very good sideboard, four force of figures, two Boseijus. Also, as I said, I would usually probably include Orvars too for the creativity, and that matchups get a lot better then. And this version is a lot better against those decks like Yagmoth, like Amulet Titan, like creativity than the usual Cascade decks. So just having access to this Melira Solitude Fury Scam ability can just really turn around those games and easily win them. So that's it. That is it. That are all the changes, and everything else is basically the same as in the first version. I really digging this variant, and I think this will be my final build for the main deck. The sideboard already explained. I'm just very frustrated by some losses from Tron. I really don't like losing to Tron when playing Zoo. So I added two more Vindicates, but it could easily be like just playing three Bosages on the side and cutting three ley lines for two unlicensed Hearst, and that way you gain two slots to fit in two Orvars, which would be I think very good because you have to be able to beat creativity. It's a very common matchup, and Orvars is just a very good hit against that deck. They mostly just, in my experience, against when playing this mid range, but still aggressive decks, they tend to scoop when you have Orvar because you are threatening with you're playing some good threats on the field, putting them under the pressure. They can't wait too long, can wait too many turns to go for the creativity. So they mostly go for it, and just they find it very hard to respond to Orvar, and you mostly get to attack with it with your Archon too. So that's in most situations that is it. So we can now check the games. Okay, this was game one, match one. I played against regular Domain Zoo version. These Cascade Zoo versions are always Always have a good advantage over that regular Nishoba Zoo versions. My opponent starts with Ragavan on the play. I didn't want to use Fury immediately. Maybe that was a mistake, but I don't think so. I went for my territorial Kavu. They're in advantage because they're on the play, so they get to loot a card away from their hand. I can't even trade this situation because if I went for Fury on turn 1 to deal with Dragavan, I just wouldn't be able now to kill this Scion. It would put me in a pretty awkward situation. So they had two cards in hand. They could easily have Binding for one Kavu, Tribal Flames for another one, attack for 7. I didn't want them to be able to do this, so I go for to leave both Kavus in the block. They're obviously holding the Stubborn Denial at this point. It was very obvious. Again, they get loot ability. Discard their Ragavan. Last time they discarded the Minor Misstep. They went to Giganta hand, and now this time they got white and red mana open. So finally, I was able to start attacking with my Kavu. I had plenty of cards in my hand, so I wasn't very much worried about them winning and longer game. So I played the Charles into Melira. I decided to just scam this Fury, kill the Giganta, leave them with one card in hand, with Shardless attacking, a Fury on the field, still have Shardless in my hand to play. So pretty good position, very hard for my opponent to deal with. Still Safi there if they try to kill Fury. So 4 creatures on the field, my opponent has nothing and just one card in hand. And they don't play a card advantage card, so that's it, game 1. As I said, the Cascade version and this Zoo Scam Cascade version is always favored against these normal Zoo because we play these 3 elementals which can stop their early creature pressure and just have a lot better mid and late game. So it's a struggle for them mostly. Okay, so my opponent again starting first with the Kavu. I have a good hand to deal with their Kavu, so I go for the Binding. Lose as don't want to lose much life, so I just play Tap Shock. My opponent didn't have. It seems like they only had this one Kavu as early threat. They tried to go for the Binding on my Binding, but I Binding their Binding in response. Okay. That seemed funny. They played Chained to the rocks, and I immediately. But I boarded in Boss Sages, but 2 Boss was my only sideboard in this matchup. Boss Sage is so good against them, especially against Leyline Binding, Scion of Jacob, but also Chain to the Rocks, and also can mess with their mana base. So pretty good card. Uh, just General Ferris is too powerful in this matchup. I did a mistake here, definitely. So this was a bad attack. I should have known they holding the Leyline Binding. Also, kind of didn't have a white card in hand, so I couldn't pitch cast Solitude. But still, I was in a so good position that it ended up not really mattering much. Just this Solitude was great here, dealing with both of their creatures. So they go for attack. I play my Solitude. I try to go for Exile Kavu and then block Nishova, but they have removal. I also had another mistake. It's not really a mistake, it was a misclick in this game, you will see. So I'm on 4 life because of that mistake. As I said, I was able to destroy the Savai Triumph, I get my cow back, and now I got Boseiju back and accidentally clicked on wrong Leyland Binding. I misclicked, clicked on wrong Leyland Binding, so I didn't get my Leyland Binding back. But luckily, I was in such a good position with this Boseiju in hand. It was hard for my opponent to get out of this situation. Played another Bloodbraid Elf, get another token, so I just attack with my Bloodbraid and I have the lethal for the next turn. Still dead to Tribal Flames top deck at any point. I got a lot of these tokens now, so which means the game is over. They just don't have to miss top decking Tribal Flames for another turn. And yeah, they didn't have it, just a bolt, so that was match one against Zoo. Okay, we'll go through the wins first. Okay, another win was against um, Eat Blast. I think it was Mono Red. Yeah, it was Mono Red, I think. Okay, I got few options here. Just went for the binding on Ragavan at turn 1. I kind of can't cast anything without third land, and I didn't get the third land, so it was pretty unlucky. Another another Fury is good, but I still need that land. My opponent doing a lot of damage here. They have grown their constructs too large, so I can't even really deal with them. If I got the land here, I could get out of this situation. I would be able to do 12 damage, so kill all of their stuff. It would be pretty nice, but yeah, I didn't draw into land, and that was it. So that was game one against 8 Blast, but I successfully won the remaining 2 matches. I had Melira, so I just want to explain something about mana base in this deck. I decided to go with Indata and Xander's Triumph. It's very important you realize this. I decided to go for that Triumph pair in this deck, and fetches just made to get those Triumphs and Shocks and Basics pairs. I think it was really important for this deck to be able to cast turn 3 both General Ferris Rokirk and Shardless Agent. So if you have Indata Triumph and Steam Vents or Xander's Lounge and Temple Garden, no matter what your third land is, you get to cast both General Rokirk and Shardless Agent on turn 3. If you're playing another Triumph pair, like Savai Zagat, which is a usual mana base for most of these zoo builds. You are, of course, you're casting Melira and Safi easier on turn 2, but you're really having a lot of problems casting consistently both General and Shardless Agent on turn 3. So if you have those two lands like Savai and Breeding Pool or a Zagot and Sacred Foundry, you need exactly your third land to be Temple Garden or Steam Vents to be able to cast both of these cards. And a lot of this situation, I was forced to go for the basic as a third land, and I would be able to cast either Shardless or General. Then I would, for example, cast a General on turn 3, then untap with Shardless, didn't draw into don't draw into fourth land, and then I wouldn't be able to cast Shardless, and I would immediately lose the game because of that. And it was just devastating, game breaking. It was awful. It was just terrible. So I think a much better plan is, if you have Melira, just go for Indata Triumph. If you have like 3 lands, you just go for Indata Triumph on turn 1, then you can fetch basic on turn 2 to cast Melira, scam your elementals, and then on turn 3 you find the Steam Vents. If you have just 2 lands, of course, you will either get just 4 colors to cast Melira, or go for the full domain and then wait for the top deck third land to cast Melira. I think it's more important to be able to cast your Shardless in general in this version. You can get by not being able to cast Melira on turn 2. Sometimes you just don't fetch the Xanders on turn 1 if you're planning on casting Melira. So just think about it for a second. You would just go, if you have 3 lands, just go for Indata on turn 1. That way you'll be able to cast Melira on turn 2 with your second land, and then with your third land you will get the full domain and be able to cast both Shardless and General with just 3 lands on the field. Okay, that's it. I think that was very important to understand. This is the example. I went for the basic on turn 2. It's also good when playing against Blood Moon to go for the basic on turn 2. My opponent goes for the Pet to Exile, and I scam Solitude in response, sacrifice my Melira, remove both of their creatures, and just attack for 3, gain 3 life. It's definitely great against 8 Blast deck. They play a lot of burn spells, and now I'm comfortably just finding my lands, preparing to hardcast these Furies. This scamming Solitude early just helps a lot by delaying opponent's plan until the late game. I decided not to play my Renin 6 in this situation where it would just die without doing much. So I decided to hold another turn, just hardcast a Fury next turn, then hardcast another Fury if needed. And I was on a high life total, so didn't have to worry about that a lot. So I just joined another Fury, which was perfect. I was able to kill all my creatures. My opponent also just gave me this Misha factory for free. I was just able to destroy it with a second Fury. And my opponent sacrificed 2 cards to kill my Fury, but it didn't matter much. The late game is definitely mine. So they went for another Shrapnel Blast, but I'm still so high on life total. It's very, very hard for my opponents to get out of this situation. Just another light up the stage for them. I went cycling and find the Kavu. Kavu was perfect. Didn't want to cast this Fury. Okay, my opponent does some experimental synthesizer stuff. I was able to cycle Triumph, get it back, then cycle another card with Territorial Kavu. They just bolt my Ren and pet my Kavu, so I get find another one, still get Triumph back to my hands, cycle it again, still holding Fury in hand if needed, but my opponent now has 2 blockers and my Fury is perfect now in this situation just to finish this game. And I loot another land. I just looted a huge amount of lands this game with Kavu and this Xander's launch. Okay, that was game 2. Okay, so grinded that out. And match game 3 against 8 Blast. Had to mulligan to 6. Got acceptable hand. I have a Melira Scam on turn 2 if necessary. I have perfect 3 lands in that Steam Vance strand, so pretty good. It's just important for you when playing this mana base to remember that you don't go for Xanders on turn 1 when you have Melira in hand. If you go for Xanders, you won't be able to cast your Melira, and sometimes you can lose a game because of that. So I just went for Melira here and decided to Boseiju their Urza Saga so they don't get extra mana. They attack with everything. I decided I will just block the Ragavan, let 2 damage through, and decided not to wait a little bit more. I now had another Safi and Melira, so I was pretty sure when I scam my Solitude, they're not going to be able to kill it in response, which was much better situation than me casting Solitude and then they're killing Solitude on the response. This way, I was just safe from them trying to kill my Solitude in the response. I just had 2 of these guys. So I was able to bring back my Solitude, remove 2 of their creatures and block the third one and gain 3 life in response. Then got to attack again and also have Melira on the field, which is definitely game over. So I attack here for 9, which is a 2-turn clock. Found Hiretsugu. Hiretsugu was useless. I saved my Solitude, which gains me life here and is better than Melira, so pretty easy decision. I go for another Shardless. Find a random 6, not really important. This game is pretty much over. It's very hard for my opponent to get out of this. Have 3 creatures on the field and Ren and Hiretsugu flipping next turn. And pretty high life total. So I guess my opponent didn't have any more basics to find to create a token last turn. So they just concede, that was it. That was match 2 against 8 Blast. Successfully won that, controlled them in the early game, and grinded the game out. Okay, so next game, I finished this league 4-1. This was first league I played with this Fable list, and it felt pretty good. I don't have as much time right now to play as much as I did before. So I'll in the next 2 months I'll won't do as much material as I did in the past months, and maybe I'll make less videos, but I'll still make them. Okay, I got Fable here. My opponent played Remand, which meant they're probably Scapeshift deck. Discarded Fury. Fury not very good against Scapeshift. They of course have Dryad, but I have other removals here available. Instant speed removals. So I play the Charlotte, get the Kabu, but they remand it. I have 7 damage on the field, plus fetch on there. It's a little. So my opponent has to do something. They go ice for the Kavu, but they're still so far away from escape shifting and in pretty comfortable situations. I just play Safi and Territorial Kavu, which are just 2 very good threats. And Safi protecting my Kavu is too strong here, and my opponent concedes next turn, so that was it. Temur escape shift. Win number 3 in this league. I kept a slower hand. Obviously, definitely want to have Kabu in starting hand in this matchup. It's the best card in matchup, a card that brings the most pressure on the field. I didn't have any plays here, so I didn't care a lot about their ice. They were pretty slow too. No ramping from my opponent. So they were pretty slow too. I was just able to gem the General Ferris here on turn 3. My opponent didn't find Remand, I think. But unfortunately, they find Renan 6. And so I was forced to just go for the Leyland, play Fable, but they have Remand, and now I'm in a pretty bad situation. I played Solitude, exiled their tracker, but now they're really close to Scapeshifting. I have Meddling Mage in hand, but I mean, playing a mage is good, but I kind of just can't. I wanted to cast it this turn, but they had ice, and the Xander was my only blue source, so I couldn't really cast anything because it was my only red source too. And they drew enough cards from this tireless tracker to be able to find their Scapeshift. It felt really bad to play the Meddling Mage into this board, so I decided to go for the General again, and then delaying Mage for the next turn, because they obviously didn't have Scapeshift in hand. They were looking to top deck it, and they did find it, but just playing Mage into that board just felt very bad and not a way to win. I think this was a way to win, just jamming a Ferris and then playing Meddling Mage next turn, getting a token, and that was the way I could possibly win. But they find Scapeshift on time, so didn't wasn't able to win that one. Okay, so game 3 in the match in the win number 3. Okay, I just mulligan to decent 6 cards here. I have Melira to protect my Meddling Mage. I go for the Renan 6 first to secure my land drops. Didn't want to get it remanded, so I play this immediately. Now my plan is to get Melira and the Meddling Mage on the field. Melira obviously first, so it can protect my Meddling Mage better. My opponent kills Melira. It's better for them to. I want them to use the removal. Unfortunately, so this was problem. I just had a Windswept Heat in hand, and I already got Breeding Pool on the field, so it was a pretty stupid situation. My only fetch was Heat, and Heat doesn't get me Steam Vents, and I wasn't able to get another blue source here. So I just needed another green source, but it was a tap. It was a tapped one, so I couldn't get it immediately, but I had to wait until the next turn, which was kind of fine. I now found the foothills, so I was able to double spell both Shardless Agent, play both Shardless Agent and Meddling Mage. Meddling Mage on the field gives me security. And they had counterspell for it, so just play my Shardless, find Kau. Kau is great too. My opponent is now close to Scapeshifting. They have 6 lands on the field and 2 cards in hand, which means those 2 cards have to be exactly land plus Scapeshift. They have a land, but no Scapeshift, which is pretty good for me. Now Renan 6 is on 7, and Kavu is able to loot another card, try to find me another Meddling Mage. I play a Bloodbraid Elf, find a Fable, attack with all my guys. This is a 2-turn clock. Loot another card with Kavu, find the second melee mage I needed, and immediately play the mage. My opponent had a counterspell, but that was the last card in their hand, and this meant they had to top deck exactly Scapeshift, and they didn't get it, so that was a win against the Scapeshift. Okay, and we'll now watch the last win in this league, 4th win. And after that, we'll watch the loss. I think the loss was against Creativity. I said that Creativity is a tough matchup for this deck, and we will need Orvars. If I had Orvars, I would probably be able to win that one too and get a trophy. So I think, yeah, kind of hard without Orvars, but Orvar is such a good hate against that deck. Okay, my opponent was on. What was this? I think this was the sorry. What is it called? My brain stopped working. Never mind. I played the Fable. I've played the grinding station deck. I played the Fable on turn 3, looking forward to looting some of these lands. This was uh, exactly why I really liked this Fable. I played it on turn 3. Then sometimes when your token survives, you're able to hardcast these Solitudes, Furies on turn 4, which is pretty good. You also get it has a great interaction with Ren 6, returning lands to your hand, and then you just discarding those lands. It's very good there too. My opponent plays Emery, and they have the fairy on the field, so I can't interact here. Um, they play the breach, have the grinding station, have the Moxember, have all the pieces they need, so I immediately concede. That was a very fast loss on game 1. But it was much easier now when I knew what I was playing against, and now I can get my good sideboard cards in. Like Hiratsugu is really good against them, especially the exile graveyard part. Okay, also often destroying a lot of permanents. I get in data first in case I draw my Melira. And also, if when you're planning on Hidetsugu, then in data is a better start because in data Steam events cast you Hidetsugu turn 3, and Xander's Temple Garden doesn't cast you Hidetsugu turn 3 with any third land. So it's important always to remember to go in data first when you have Hidetsugu in your hand. Okay, my opponent just goes for the Saga in the first turns, which is very good for me and my Hidetsugu. I just pass the turn, I'm okay with that. Play another land, play Kavu, then prepare for Hiretsugu turn after they do the Saga thing. So I was able to play my Kavu and leave 2 white mana open so I can play 2 of the Leyline Bindings if needed for their combo stuff. They just make 2 Urza construct tokens, which is perfect for Hiretsugu obviously. Play another Saga, so but that's pretty slow. So I'm fine with playing Hiratsugu immediately. I resolve it, kill all their stuff, start attacking with the Kavu. Discard Fury, I really prefer instant speed interaction. I get Ren. Ren is good here. They play Iteration, but they kind of have a hard time dealing with the Kavu here. Exiling their graveyard, so great, just removing their Mox Embers, Mishra Bubbles from the graveyard, dealing 5 more damage, playing Brennan 6, returning land, playing General Pharaohs, still holding Solitude for this turn, but also 3 Leyline Bindings when I untap. So they go Fury, Bolt, and bounce my General. So this slowed me down a bit, but not too much. They both make Hiretsugu, but General is too strong here. If they can deal with this, it will just quickly take over the game. I was able to hold a lot of interaction, and just my opponent conceded at this point. So that was it. That was game 2. So we can now watch game 3 in the grinding station matchup. Decent hand. playing second, but have a turn 2 play, good turn 3 play. They don't play Wrenn 6 and don't really have ways to deal with General Ferrous. And also this leyline protects me from their comboing. So I feel pretty good about this game. They start with Saga. Saga is kind of the best that they can have when I draw into leyline. I find the Hiritsugu, which is perfect draw, so I was able to just jam Vren on turn 2, then just go for General on turn 3 with following with the Hiritsugu next turn. Pretty good. And they just go for 2 concert tokens again, which is definitely what I want them to do. They go for Retro Spellbomb just to bounce my General Ferrous. It was perfect opportunity to replay the Hiritsugu, get another land, and I only had Solitude and General at this point, but it's more than enough because such a hard. It's so hard for them to deal with this. So I went for the second black source, so I'm able to cast this ley line. I decided to do it immediately. Leyline feels pretty important here. I finished off their Teferi with the Brennan 6 ping, and now I had the instant speed interaction in Solitude if needed, but also Hiretsugu flipping, again Leyline on the field, which they have to deal with, and now I'm just comfortably able to jam the general and force them to deal with it again. And as you can see, obviously they're having hard time dealing with this, just bouncing with the other spell bombs, Teferis, whatever. So they go for the explosives, but they don't have another lens, so I just lay them binding their explosives before they're able to um, do anything with it, and that was the most important play in this match. And now I top decked into Bloodbraid Elf, just making incredible value with the General Ferris into Territorial Cow, into 2 turn clock, so my opponent concedes on the next turn. That was it. And unfortunately didn't have my Orvars. For this league, if I had them, I feel like so favorable to win with Orvars in my deck against creativity. These games always go longer, and I'm able to find one of the Orvars at least in a lot of situations, but also very hard without them also, so definitely tricky. I go for I had a good hand here. Ran 6, turn 2 again, general on turn 3, but problem is this deck plays Brennan 6 and I have to deal with it. I decided to go for the general, and but they had the fairy. The fairy was like really good for them here. Didn't have much option, no interaction in my hands. I just went to replay the general. I felt this is the best thing I can do, and then hope to draw into hope for them not having the creativity on turn 4. It happens a lot, really. It's not that uncommon, but they had it transmogrify. But I was kind of still one top deck gets me out of this. One removal for Archon. So I played the Melira. Felt like this is still not over. I didn't get the removal I was looking for, but I got a lot of power on the field. Unfortunately, my opponent was just a bit too high on life, and after 2 Archon abilities and a very good starting hand from my opponent, they were able to easily just deal with all of this. and immediately finish it with a bolt. So that's it. That was lost game one against creativity. Just with the current sideboard, it didn't have much. Meddling Mage obviously can help, but they have a lot of removal, and it's Meddling Mage is very easy for them to kill. So it's only good when paired with the Safi Melira, which is not easy to get every time, of course. But also Territorial Kavu is a very good card against when playing on the play against creativity. It can get a lot of pressure in, and yeah, kind of Vren is a problem for general. So I really have to deal with this, and I got to kill the Vren, attack for 5, which definitely put me in a pretty good position here. I wanted both of these cards from my hand, but yeah, this was the deciding point. My opponent had a second Vren. I was able to play the Meddling Mage, naming Creativity, but my opponent had Leyline Binding plus the Bolt, which was pretty good draws. So I was able to play my second mage, again naming Creativity, but they had another removal. So just went for Charles, finding another Cabo, which is very good because they're now low on life. But they had Prismari. Prismari find them Creativity, and that sealed the match. That was it. That was all the games in this league. A 4-1 league, first league with the Fables, and the Fables felt very good. Unfortunately, didn't have Orvars in. Orvar was so good and just went through a lot of cards, and in a lot of situations, I'm able to get it because I still get some card selection now with the Fable and Cavo looting. Especially when you're playing on the play, it feels like a high chance of finding one. But yeah, just didn't work out this time against creativity, and that's it. Hope you like this deck. I think it's very fun, also very powerful. Really happy with the Fable list. Uh, uh, the list including Fable, exactly this one. I really love these numbers: 3 Rams, 3 Fables, 3 Bloodbraid Elves, 5 of these, 8 of these, and just feels very good. I prefer Fable to the Scion of the Draco after some testing. Um, Fable was just another very good threat opponent had a lot of trouble dealing with. And while Sion is more aggressive, obviously, deck playing Solitude for Solitude in the main just doesn't often care that much about aggression. It's more about the good mid-range plan, and Fable being able to deal with the flood and a very good interaction with Brennan 6, but also copying the possibility of copying the Fury's Solitudes. When flipped and protected by Melira, Safi just presents as a very strong threat opponent has to deal with or lose. And I think that's exactly where I want to be. I think this is definitely my final list for the main deck. For the sideboard not, as I already explained, I would probably cut the ley lines, go to hers instead, and then cut the Vindicates, add the third Boseiju, and in that way find a spot for 2 Orvarsin. And that's it. So 3 Bosages, 2 Unlicensed Hearst, for example, or I don't know, some other graveyard hate. I think Hearst is probably among the best, but it can also be something else. And that's it. Okay, hope you like the deck. Hope you like the gameplay, this video. And if you want to help the channel, click like, click subscribe, and that's it for today. Okay, bye.